Today I'm going to show you how to adapt and use lenses on the Olympus E-M10 II. Okay, so you've thought about adapting lenses to the E-M10 II. Maybe you've already bought a couple lenses or have lenses left over, say, from your other system, in my case Nikon, and you go out and you buy an adapter. For example, I bought this Nikon f-mount to micro four thirds adapter, and I think I paid about $18 for it. I like this one because it has a aperture adjustment ring on it, and that'll allow me to use Nikon G lenses where they stop putting aperture rings on the lens directly. This will still let me adjust the aperture manually using the adapter. So today though I'm going to show you adapting. This is my Nikon or 35mm Zeiss f2, which has its own aperture ring on it. Okay, and you know, it's very simple. You just mount the lens onto the adapter as if you're mounting it onto a Nikon camera, and then you mount this end directly onto the Olympus, just as if you're adapting. And there's a red dot here, you line that up. Nothing new here. And then it locks into place. Okay, and what I'm going to do is make sure I take the lens cap off. Okay, so let me see. That's going to be all the way closed. Okay, so I'll turn this to my left to open the aperture all the way up on this adapter's ring. And then I'm going to set the lens to f2 manually here on the lens itself. Okay. All right, and that's all there is to mounting the lens on there. And there's some minor differences. Like I have this micro four thirds to C-mount lens, and I did a video on swirly bokeh, this is one of my favorite lenses that are cheap. I mean, this lens with the adapter is smaller than just this Nikon adapter by itself, so I really love that lens. I use it a lot. Okay, so now on the camera itself, you really only need to change a couple of things. Okay, so let's go into the menu, and I'm going to do a factory or full reset here. Okay, just so that we're all on the same page. And the next thing I'm going to do is, you see these little info boxes pop up. You can turn that off by clicking the info button. They're very handy when you first get the camera. You know, it kind of explains what's going on for each menu item, but after you're familiar, you can stop using it because it's kind of annoying. Okay, so I'm going to do this, adjust the display brightness of the live view just for the sake of YouTube. This is not something you need to do for adapted lenses. So let's go ahead and start doing that. There's, like I said, there was two things. The first thing I always like to do is, when I put a lens on, is tune the image stabilization to the focal length of the lens. So in this case, this is a 35mm lens. I need to tune the image stabilization to 35mm. And the easiest way to do that is you go into the Super Control panel. You just click the OK button. And on the Super Control panel, the image stabilization is right here. So I click OK. And you can see right now it's set to auto image stabilization 9mm. Okay, and we need to change that. So we'll just click the info button, and I'll punch up here by just pushing up on the jog dial, and I'll change that to 35mm. And that's it. So now the camera's image stabilization is tuned to the lens, just like if it was a native mount micro four thirds lens. You know, if you don't tune that properly, sometimes the image stabilization will overcompensate or undercompensate, and your images are going to come out blurry, even though you know you think you're rock steady. So that's a very, very important step, more important than anything else I'm going to show you here. But let's go on to the next thing, and that's the focus peaking. Okay, and there's two things I do with focus peaking. One is, first thing I like to do And we can ignore the autofocus manual focus menu because that only applies to native micro four thirds lenses. I'm going to reprogram some of these buttons on the camera. And let's click OK. And the first thing I'm going to change is this function 1 button right here. And because right now the default is AEL, auto exposure lock, autofocus lock, which really doesn't really matter on these adapted lenses. It's not really used. So let's go in here and I'm going to change this to what they call magnify. Okay, so I'm going to scroll up until I see magnify. Okay. And then I'm going to click OK. So now I have the little magnifying glass assigned to function 1. Okay. Now, in the button function, the next thing I'm going to change is this function 2 button right up here on the front. And I like to change this. I like to change this one, and I'm going to scroll up to peaking. That way, I can use the focus peaking anytime. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so I'm going to click OK. So now the function 2 button is programmed to peaking. And those are the only 2 buttons I need to program with these adapted lenses. So we'll click OK. Now we're back out to the main menu for programming the functions. Next thing I'm going to do, and this is a personal preference, I'm going to go down to the display menu. And I'm going to scroll all the way down until I get to peaking settings. And the default peaking color is white. White is kind of hard to see. And they have other choices here, red and black, yellow. I like to use yellow. And the reason being is there's another highlight or peaking function on the camera for the histogram. And the histogram peaking uses blue and red. So I like to use yellow so that it sort of stands out against that other type of peaking. And then when I'm looking through the viewfinder or on the back of the camera, I know which peaking I'm looking at because I know I program yellow. If I start using other colors, black, white, red, I get a little bit confused, to be honest, what I'm looking at sometimes on the back of the camera. So I always program this to yellow, so it's just easier to see and know right away which peaking I'm looking at. And the next thing in here is like the highlight intensity. And that's, normal's good enough. You can set it to low, you can set it to high so that it actually makes the peaking a little bit more intense. But then when you do that, you lose a little bit of accuracy. The most accurate peaking function is actually low. And that way only the highest contrast closest pixels, because it works by looking at 2 pixels side by side and measuring the brightness between the two. So if there's a pixel side by side and one is completely black, one is completely white, the camera is going to think that's 100% in focus. And then as you pick like a normal or medium peaking, if the 2 pixels side by side are a little bit less than black and a little bit less than white, in low, that may not highlight, but in normal or high intensity, the camera may highlight those 2 pixels together. Because that still may be in focus, but most likely it's not. But that's basically how it works at a very simple level. So I'm going to pick for this demo, I'm just going to pick high just for the sake of demonstration, and it's just easier to see when I'm doing this on YouTube. Okay, next thing is a personal preference is the image brightness adjustment. I like to turn this off, again, because what it does is it normally darkens the image so that the highlight peaking is a little bit more visible. But then again, for the sake of consistency, I'd rather the camera always show me the exposure as the picture is going to be taken. So that it's, if I'm looking at it, I'm peaking and I'm thinking, oh, this picture's too dark, and I accidentally adjust the exposure. And then when I take it, it's too bright because I've overcompensated. It's easier for me to know that what I'm looking at is always the exposure that's going to be taken of the final picture. So that's why I like to turn this off. So it's, again, less confusing when you're working with peaking and all these other different things in the camera. Okay, and that's it. So let's go ahead and start to use this focus peaking. And I have a little prop here, and if I try to focus this by eye, my eyesight's not that good. I need my glasses on, but that looks about right. Now remember, I programmed the function 1 button to magnify and the function 2 button for peaking. So I could go ahead and click this button for peaking, and you can see right away that I was pretty close. You can see a lot of yellow highlights right in here on the creature's head and near his eye. But again, if I want to be sure I'm focused right on the creature's eye, I can click this magnify button. Let me turn the touch screen on so we can move this focus point right to the center of his eye, and now I can punch in right on that spot. I can move it over a little. Okay, so I can see I'm actually still a little bit off. Oh, there. See, if I've turned the focus ring on the lens a little bit, you can see I'm getting much better focusing. And that looks pretty good to me. So I'll hit the function 1 button again to punch out, and I'll go ahead and take a picture here. I'm pretty happy with that. But before I take the picture, just again notice that the focus peaking is actually highlighting almost an inch worth of distance here. So when you're zoomed out, focus peaking can kind of be a little misleading. So that's why I always like to punch in, assuming you have the time, to take the picture like that. Okay, so let's take a picture. And I'm going to go into the play and see if I can zoom in here. That looks pretty good. Not bad. I think I got it. Okay. So that's it. Hopefully that helped you. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. And if you like this video, just hit the like button for me. That way I know you guys are watching and enjoy the videos that I'm making. It makes me feel good. Sorry. Also, I plan on making more videos for the EM10. I've made several for the Olympus Pen F, which is filming this now. But I'm going to make some more for the EM10 specifically because the menus are similar, but just different enough that I think the EM10 deserves their own videos, or its own videos. Okay, thanks again for watching. We'll see you again soon.